Federal investigation, right? That congressional investigation, we should say, is unfolding as New Mexico is conducting its own state investigation. You're looking at Zorro Ranch here. That's Epstein's property. You might remember we did some reporting there some weeks ago. I spoke with the state's Attorney General, Raul Torres, earlier today, who says he has some concerns now about the Justice Department's cooperation. Thank you so much for being here. You are in Washington to speak with survivors. This was a goal, right? Talk to me about this conversation that you had with them yesterday.
So there was a convening that was hosted by the World Without Exploitation, which is a group that really is focusing on raising awareness in this country and around the world, frankly, about the impact of human trafficking. And it provided an opportunity for us to get in front of Epstein survivors and let them know about New Mexico's ongoing criminal investigation.
To do this, to conduct this investigation, you obviously need materials, you need information, and you have asked, and you referenced this yesterday too, that you've asked the DOJ for unredacted access to the Epstein files, and you still do not have it. Why do you think that is?
Well, look, we're working through a process that it's called the 2E process. It's complicated, but the bottom line is there is a longstanding practice of federal law enforcement and state law enforcement collaborating, coordinating, sharing information. We have engaged the Department of Justice. We are still waiting for that access. It is frustrating. I'll tell you that it is hindering our ability to move this investigation forward at the pace that I would like. And I'm hoping that we can resolve that in a way that serves the interests of these survivors. But, you know, it remains to be seen whether or not we're going to have unredacted access to the
But what does that mean? Is your only option here to wait? What do you do from here if the DOJ is not going to play ball and give you what you're asking for?
Well, look, I haven't ruled anything out in terms of what next steps might be.
Including legal action against the DOJ?
That's a possibility. But my hope is that we can have a cooperative relationship. We've been meeting with people on Capitol Hill who have really taken a lead in trying to bring transparency to the Epstein files. I know that's the thing that is frustrating both members of both party on Capitol Hill, but also the survivors themselves.
You said you are hopeful for cooperation here from this Department of Justice, which is if the nomination for the potentially soon to be Attorney General goes through, will be Todd Blanche leading that department. He is somebody who said just a couple of months ago that to the extent that the Epstein files was a part of the past year of this Justice Department, it should not be a part of anything going forward. Do you believe then, given that Todd Blanche is the right person to lead the DOJ and by extension lead any sort of cooperation with your office on the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would defer that judgment to the members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, who I know are going to be tasked with taking up his nomination. What I will say is that as a career law enforcement and state and federal prosecutor, it's unusual for us to not have this kind of cooperation.
Does it concern you that the potential next AG said what he said about the Epstein case?
It is. I mean, it's concerning that we don't have a level of cooperation that, again, as a longtime prosecutor, was pretty routine for state investigators and prosecutors to work with our federal counterparts, ask for information, and receive that information in a timely fashion. We are continuing to try and work through the process that they have established, but at this point, there is a growing sense of frustration on my team about the lack of access to critical information.
So what does that timeline look like? I know you've told survivors that you can't be sharing every detail publicly about your investigation because it is criminal, but what can you say about where this is going? I look at, for example, Leslie Groff, who's going to be on Capitol Hill today testifying behind closed doors. Is she somebody you want to talk to? What else? Who else are you looking to bring in?
Well, we will be looking to talk to and dig into the details around any individual who was directly involved with Jeffrey Epstein's conduct at Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. And so we don't leave anyone off the table in terms of the leads that we're going to follow. But this is a really important point. I think there is some confusion about the fact that as a criminal investigation, we don't talk publicly. This is Fight Club. We don't talk about it.
You can issue subpoenas, right?
We can.
And have you?
And well, we won't. We're not going to discuss publicly what we do as investigators because that's in the nature of what we do, and it's very different than members of Congress. And I've had members of Congress and others, even back in New Mexico on the Truth Commission, urge us to really get into the details publicly about what we're doing. But what I want to do in terms of public statements is to encourage survivors.
Well, and to this point, you know, when you talk about trust, one of the things in my conversations with some survivors, I do think there is to a degree a sense of fatigue sometimes with the process.
Absolutely.
They've done a lot of talking. I think there are many survivors who want to see some accountability now moving forward. When you say to them, I'm not just another man in a blue suit, I need you to trust me. Why should survivors believe that you will be the person to, as they hope, carry this ball over the finish line when it comes to some sort of degree of accountability additionally?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, it's because we are not spending a lot of time publicly discussing all of the things that they have already talked about publicly. My career and my entire life in public service, frankly, has been focused on trying to protect survivors, right? To protect children who have been abused, adults who have been the victims of sexual assault and sexual violence. And one of the things that I've learned from that experience is that it's a sacred thing to build a relationship with a survivor and ask them to share details which are, I mean, the most tragic things that you can.
It's so vulnerable.
That's right. And so what we want them to understand is that this is different. I'm not trying to promise them an outcome as a prosecutor. We never do that. We will never make a promise about a particular outcome that we want to achieve at the end of this, other than getting to the truth, other than getting to the bottom of exactly what happened and getting a clear understanding of how this was allowed to occur at Zora Ranch for so long without a law enforcement response.
Mr. Attorney General, thank you so much for being with us. An important conversation. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
We thank you for watching, and remember,